Welcome to the 19th Annual Patrons and Donors Program, sponsored by the National Center for the Study of Civil Rights and African American Culture. This is our third year presenting this program to you virtually. My name is Reagan Stearns, and I'm the University Archivist here at the Alabama State University. Since we met last year, and under the leadership of Dr. Janice Franklin, Project Director of the Center's hardworking staff and its steering committee, the National Center has offered a robust roster of programs highlighting the modern civil rights movement and African American culture. We're also happy to report that donors contributed several collections to the ASU Archives Department this past year. This Patrons and Donors program will catch you, our friends, up on all the news and developments of the archives and the National Center. And now, our program MC, my colleague, Ms. Kashonda Murphy, will guide us through the rest of today's Patrons and Donors program. Thank you.
Welcome to the Levi Watkins Learning Center Interactive Room. The exhibits in this room teach us the role of Alabama State University in the modern civil rights movement. Hello, my name is Kashonda Murphy, and I am the Historical Archivist here at Alabama State University. I want to welcome you again to the Patrons and Donors program. First, our Provost, Dr. Pettis, will bring us greetings on behalf of the administration. Then, National Center's Cultural Heritage Manager, Ms. Bradley Petway, will let us know a bit about the center's mission.
Good afternoon. On behalf of the Board of Trustees, President Quentin T. Ross Jr., the administration, faculty, staff, and students of Alabama State University, welcome to the Patrons and Donors program. This program is sponsored by the National Center for the Study of Civil Rights and African American Culture at ASU, under the direction of Dean Janice R. Franklin, in partnership with the university's Archives Department. Today's event will highlight the support given by the National Center's patrons, as well as those donors who have given collections to our university archives. We are thankful to the National Center and all of our program participants. We hope you will enjoy the showcase of historic artifacts that have been entrusted to the archives this year. We also invite you to join the Patrons Organization, which supports the National Center's mission of researching and preserving African American culture and history. Sit back, relax, and enjoy today's program.
Greetings. My name is Ms. Bradley Petway, Cultural Heritage Manager for the National Center for the Study of Civil Rights and African American Culture at Alabama State University. At the National Center, we are grounded in our mission to research, preserve, and teach future generations throughout the world the significance of the civil rights movement in African American culture. This mission has a special focus on Alabama State University's rich history at the heart of the civil rights movement and the role Montgomery played during the movement that aided in shaping the nation. We sincerely appreciate our patrons of the National Center who have worked diligently to carry out our mission as advocates and as a support group in fundraising and supporting the work of the National Center. Now we'll hear from Patrons President Bill Ford, who will tell us more about the Patrons Organization. Thank you.
Hello to all the alumni, faculty, staff, and friends of the historic Alabama State University. My name is Bill Ford, and I am the president of the Patrons Board for the National Center for the Study of Civil Rights and African American Culture at Alabama State University. Although this is the second year of my three-year term, it really feels like the first, as last year was greatly affected by the global pandemic. 2 days ago, the World Health Organization declared that the end of the COVID-19 pandemic is in sight. Let us all pray that the trend continues so we can return to normalcy, while we know that other virulent pathogens emerge seemingly every year. The Patrons Organization serves as a fundraising and advocacy arm of the National Center and its mission. A volunteer group, we provide logistical support and generate additional programs and activities to inform the public of the incredible work being done by the National Center, preserving and documenting the history of the modern civil rights movement. A movement largely started in Montgomery, Alabama, with the students, faculty, and staff of ASU in pivotal roles. We anticipate returning to a robust schedule of activities for the coming year. Our annual gala, Gamapalooza, bus trips to regional museums and historic sites are just a highlight of our agenda, and we are excited to see the return of our long-standing patrons and even more excited to welcome new faces to our group. Please join us by becoming a patron of the National Center. We have levels of membership for individuals and corporations and even opportunities for sponsorship. With your involvement and assistance, the vitality and relevance of the National Center is assured. Thank you for all you do, and remember that if we do not tell our story, others will attempt to do so in our stead.
We are so thankful for the support and work of our patrons. To learn more about the patrons, please be sure to visit the National Center's webpage and social media. We pause now to celebrate the lives of Ms. Johnny Royster, Dr. Elvin Lang, Mr. Darrell Parker, and Dr. Paul Morris Sr., 4 people who were so dear to the Alabama State University family.
Elvin was the longest serving volunteer with the university's archive. In fact, he volunteered from 2007 until his death in 2021. We always would tease him because you never saw him without his camera, and he would take pictures of everything and everyone. Along with his photographs, he was just as passionate about genealogy and cemeteries. For example, he would be traveling and see a cemetery beside the road. He would stop and take a picture of the grave or graves and note the location so that if he could, he would be able to register it with the Alabama Historical Commission's state cemetery program. All of Elvin's work will not be lost because he donated it to the university's archives. His collection consists of documents and materials related to his love and his interests. We will miss Mr. Lane's wit, his humor, his energy, and his knowledge. Thank you, Mr. Lane.
Hello, I'm Joseph Caver. I am an adjunct professor and part-time worker here at the Levi Watkins Learning Center. I'm here to commemorate Dr. Paul Moore Sr., who was a member of the patron group. Dr. Moore and I first came in contact probably in the early 1980s through my brother-in-law, Dr. James Wright, who was a professor at Talladega College. At that time, Dr. Moore was the president of Talladega College. And looking at his bio, I later learned he was a graduate of Florida A&M University and went on and got his doctorate. But my contact with him was first at Talladega College and then later at the Alabama Commission of Higher Education. But his legacy is rich and instructive, particularly for Black males. He was a mathematician and enjoyed numbers. He makes sense of numbers. He was interested in the Black community and the history of the Black community, and that's where our discussion would come in. Before retiring from working for the Air Force, where I had worked on a book called Illustrated History of the Tuskegee Airmen, later served as a consultant with the Red Tail movie with Lucasfilm. Got a call from Dr. Moore one day and said, "Hey, look, my brother was a Tuskegee Airman." And I got his name. He was Dean Senior. He was a junior. So we found his brother, we found this record, and was able to produce a picture of him in his graduating class from the Tuskegee Army Airfield. I believe it's 1944. It made his day. He told me he had never seen a picture of his brother in uniform, and which I provided for him. In closing, I would like to say, Dr. Moore left a legacy and contributed greatly to the state of Alabama and to HBCUs. Dr. Moore, thank you. As a patron and as a Black American who left a rich legacy worthy of emulation. Thank you.
A native of Chicago, Illinois, and graduate of Alabama State University, Darrell Avon Parker worked as a part-time employee with Alabama State University's archives. On Friday, July 22, 2022, Parker died of natural causes. Parker was an attorney, the Montgomery County Director of Elections, and a member of Omega Psi Phi fraternity, as well as a father of 5. Parker, who was the keeper of records and seal with his fraternity, will be remembered for his philanthropic work promoting aquaponics as a low-cost source of healthy foodstuffs in low-income neighborhoods. We will miss Darrell Parker.
The National Center is deeply saddened to announce the passing of the beloved first president of the Patrons Organization, Mrs. Johnny Mullins Roster. Mrs. Roster passed on Friday, August 12, 2022. She was a native of Montgomery and daughter of the late John and Molly Mullins. Mrs. Roster was a longtime resident of the city, a graduate of Alabama State University, a member of Delta Sigma Theta Incorporated, and of the Agnes J. Lewis Federated Club. Mrs. Roster's strong ties to the Montgomery community, the organizational skills she gained from her association with local groups, her capacity to relate to others, and additional skills she acquired as secretary and administrative assistant to 6 presidents of Alabama State University, gave her the wisdom to oversee the founding of the group Dr. Janice Franklin, project director of the National Center, had envisioned as an advocacy and support unit for the National Center. Mrs. Roster served as president of the Patrons from 2005 to 2007. She helped to bring the organization through its formative period, when missteps could have crushed it just as it sought to secure its foundation. The new president helped the organization formulate a vision for its work as an advocacy and support unit for the National Center, drafted a constitution and bylaws, appointed committees, inspired unity within the group, and recruited additional members. Mrs. Roster faced this challenge with a sense of commitment based on her understanding of the National Center's mission to serve as a tool for dispensing knowledge of the rich history of Black struggle for freedom and equality within American society. Her calm and even disposition brought clarity and provided the direction the group needed to carry out its mission. Roster expected no compensation for her service. She took on the awesome task of helping bring an organization into existence, which still stands today as a representation of her excellent leadership and devotion to duty. May her role in the history of the Patrons of the National Center forever remain in our hearts and minds.
I'm standing in one of the archive's stacks areas. This is a location that the public generally doesn't get to see, but in celebration of American Archives Month, which is honored each October, and in honor of this program, please enjoy this virtual tour of the archives. This is where we preserve and manage our 300 collections of rare books, organizational and personal papers, art, photographs, artifacts, and media. The Alabama State University Archives will be celebrating our 50th anniversary next year, having been formally organized in 1973. Over the years, our leaders, including our current Levi Watkins Learning Center Dean, Dr. Janice Franklin, have invested in infrastructure, in training, staff, and other resources to ensure the continued growth of the archives. In addition to honoring our patrons, this program allows us an opportunity to say thank you to our donors who over the past year have donated their valuable collections to the university. They range from books to art to artifacts, media, and music. We depend on our donors for the continued growth of the archival collections. As ASU's archivist, I am honored to highlight this year's donations to the archives. Additions were made to several of the archive's existing collections this year. ASU alumnus and renowned artist Dr. William E. Colvin grew his personal collection by donating several boxes of multi-format material. Included in the donation were academic papers and presentations written by Dr. Colvin during his time employed at Illinois State University. Also donated were art catalogs, vinyl records, and audio recordings. Dr. Colvin is an artist, curator, and educator. He is a 1951 graduate of Alabama State University. Mrs. Jacqueline Lacey added to her personal archives collection by donating artifacts that she used as a midwife. Mrs. Lacey shared a kit consisting of scissors used to cut umbilical cords and a cloth mask with the archives. Several books were added to the Herman L. Harris collection. Harris was a 1949 graduate of what was then known as Alabama State Teachers College. He was a military veteran and a long-serving educator with over 30 years in the profession. The Herman L. Harris collection reflects his life as an educator and as a member of the Alabama State Teachers Association. The Prince Albert Howard Jr. and Living Trust Family Collection grew this year. Among other personal artifacts, the family donated a fascinating collection of letters and postcards written by William Harris to his family, detailing his experiences as a Marine. Many of our accretions came from members of the Alabama State University community. We are appreciative of Ms. Euless Hunt Jackson, who facilitated the donation of material to our President's Office collection. This year, we received a vintage adding machine, a 1986 alumni directory, as well as ASU Foundation documents. We depend on ASU's faculty and staff to help us make sure all of the university's departments are documented in the archives and encourage others to contact us to make sure their areas are represented. For example, Dr. Carly Johnson, professor and chair of the Department of Music, reached out to the archives letting us know that she had discovered boxes of historical reels and recordings. Dr. Johnson and Ms. Jamesetta Adams coordinated the transfer of over 100 recordings documenting the music department's activities, including faculty performances and student recitals. The archives looks forward to digitizing some of the material and making it available to researchers. Our Dr. Clifford C. Baker collection grew this year as well. Dr. Baker served as Alabama State University's 9th president from 1991 to 1994. In addition to serving as president, Dr. Baker also was an alumnus of ASU. He earned a Bachelor of Science in Mathematics from ASU in 1954 and a Master of Education degree in 1956. Mrs. Jean Baker is a proud Hornet as well and also adds to the Baker collection. This summer, I attended an estate sale at the home of the Bakers. As an archivist, I noticed a few items that I thought should be placed in the ASU archives, and so a monogrammed shirt and 2 personal reels were added to the Dr. C.C. Baker collection. We look forward to digitizing the reels to discover what they contain and making them available to researchers. Dr. Howard Robinson serves as the library's Associate Director for Archives and Cultural Heritage Services. He established the Dr. Howard Robinson Collection many years ago in the archives. This collection serves as the repository for his research on the modern civil rights movement and the experiences and contributions of Montgomery, Alabama's Black community. This year, Dr. Robinson added around 100 books, as well as academic publications and ASU memorabilia to his collection. Dr. Robinson also facilitated the addition of a plaque dated November 16, 1961, from the United States Supreme Court to Judge Charles Swinger Conley. Judge Conley was a 1941 ASU alum who earned his law degree from New York University in 1955. He returned to Montgomery in 1960 and for many years served as the attorney on record for Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., the Montgomery Improvement Association, and the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. The plaque will be added to the Judge Charles Swinger Conley collection. Dr. Janice Franklin, Dean of the LWLC and Project Director of the National Center for the Study of Civil Rights and African American Culture, also added to her personal collection. Dr. Franklin's additions reflect her active participation in civic groups and community events. For example, this year, the Archives received a 1986 debutante cotillion book for the Beta Beta chapter of Phi Delta Kappa Incorporated, as well as several programs and memorabilia of university events. Dr. Franklin also facilitates the transfer of records from the Cosmopolite Federated Club to the Archives. This women's club was established in 1939 with the goal to promote civic welfare, aesthetic beauty, general culture, and social refinement. Over 80 years later, the Cosmopolite Civic Club still strives to meet these goals. This year, a meeting ledger and binder of meeting agendas were added to the collection. Distinguished civil rights attorney and 1951 ASU alum, Fred Grace Sr., was awarded on July 7th of this year the Presidential Medal of Freedom by President Joe Biden. Attorney Gray earned this honor because of his immense contributions to advancing human rights in the United States. He defended both Rosa Parks and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. during the 1955 Montgomery bus boycott. Among other notable cases, Attorney Gray also represented the plaintiffs in the Tuskegee syphilis study. ASU professor and chair of the history department, Dr. Darren Moten, was instrumental in helping to nominate Attorney Gray for this award and gathering documents and letters in support for Attorney Gray. Dr. Moten attended the ceremony at the White House as a guest of Attorney Gray and has graciously added the program and supporting documentation to his collection. Now let's spotlight some new collections. Stephen D. Gish is an author and professor of history at Auburn University at Montgomery. He is a scholar of South Africa and donated antique books to our archives. Included in his donation were these titles: From Cape Town to Ladysmith, an unfinished record of the South African War, published in 1900, The Transvaal from Within, published in 1899, and Some South African Recollections, also published in 1899. Mr. Gish also donated the books The Afrikanders and The New Map of Africa, 1900 to 1916. Yasmin Rana is a 2009 ASU alumna who served 6 years in the Obama administration at both the White House and the Department of Homeland Security. She also recently served as the executive director of the Hustlers Guild, an organization which develops and empowers youth ages 10 through 19. Ms. Rana gave the Archives a proclamation of National African American History Month from 2013, signed by President Obama. We received a retirement program celebrating retired educator Olivette Cunningham from her nephew, Delgardo Pitts. Ms. Cunningham attended ASU's Laboratory School and matriculated from the university circa 1958 with a degree in biology and chemistry. Ms. Cunningham was a participant in the Montgomery bus boycott in 1955. Willie Townsend donated vintage copies of Life magazine from 1969 and 1970, as well as a copy of the Saturday Evening Post, issue from 1937. He also presented the Archives with a framed print of Winslow Homer's 1861, A Bivouac Fire on the Potomac. Cleve Moody donated a photo album / scrapbook documenting the student experiences of Derek Moody on ASU's campus in the early 1980s. The scrapbook includes many photographs, as well as programs and correspondence. Derek Moody was active in several activities, including the SGA and the French Club. He also wrote for the Hornet Tribune. Kevin Ford, by way of the ASU Foundation, deposited his original human rights-themed painting in the archives. Ford is a 2006 ASU alumnus and is an award-winning animator and graphic designer. This painting depicts ASU luminaries such as Reverend Ralph Abernathy, Attorney Fred Gray, and Joanne Robinson, whose participation in the modern civil rights movement changed the world. The work was produced as part of the 2021 virtual Reebok Human Rights Awards Summit, which was held in partnership with ASU, Reebok, and the ACLU. ASU alumnus William Hanson donated over 100 vintage and collectible dolls to the archives this summer. The dolls were collected during the course of William and his beloved wife Norma's marriage. The Hansons began collecting when William was inspired to buy a doll in New Orleans early in their marriage. Miss Norma Hanson passed away in 2019. Members of the Alabama State University family who donated new collections to us include Dr. Katarina Bristol. Dr. Bristol is a music professor at ASU who has also served as the Associate Dean for the College of Visual and Performing Arts. Dr. Bristol donated a large collection of orchestra and music scores, vinyl records, and various music-related artifacts to the archives. Dr. Howard Robinson, the Levi Watkins Learning Center's Associate Director for Archives and Cultural Heritage Services, established the Diane Robinson Doll Collection in honor of his late mother and donated a large number of figurine and collectible dolls. ASU professor and artist Cleve Weber donated a copy of the book An Exerted Dream on Becoming an Artist. This book was written by Regina B. Colvin, daughter of Dr. William Colvin, who is an ASU alum and renowned artist. Mr. Weber is a tenured full professor in the art department as well as gallery curator. We are delighted to announce that ASU alums Professor Emeritus James and Clanice Kennedy have donated 6 African masks to the archives. The Kennedys reached out to our president, Dr. Quentin T. Ross, to initiate the gift. James Kennedy was born in Jackson, Mississippi, and is a 1950 graduate of ASU. He also received a Master's of Art and Teaching degree from Indiana University. Clanice Kennedy is a Mobile native and is a 1951 ASU graduate. Professor Emeritus James Kennedy began his teaching career in the Mobile County Public School System and ended his affiliation with that system as an administrator as an assistant principal. In 1968, he joined the University of South Alabama faculty as an instructor and was employed as one of its first African American faculty members. He rose through the ranks to professor and served 16 years as chairperson of art and art history. His areas of teaching expertise include painting, drawing, two-dimensional designs, art education, African American art history, and African art history. His 29-year tenure with the University of South Alabama afforded him the opportunity to contribute in many ways to the development of the institution in its emerging years. Among those contributions and honors are being a founder of the Black Student Union, which is now the African American Student Association, collaborating and spearheading and helping to establish the Black Studies degree program in the College of Arts and Sciences. Professor Emeritus Kennedy also helped to establish the Ethnic American Art Slide Library and assisted in establishing the first 2 Black fraternity chapters on the USA campus. He has served as lecturer, panelist, paper presenter, and consultant. James Kennedy's personal artwork has been included in local, regional, and national exhibits with one painting being purchased from a national competition by the Johnson Publishing Company. The Kennedys were inspired to donate this collection to ASU because of Professor Kennedy's love of art and of his people. Their hope is to share his love of art with the community. James Kennedy has been married to retired educator Clenice Kennedy for 31 years. He has 2 children, Gia Gay and Jason Kennedy. With Clenice, he has 2 stepchildren, Megan McCovey and Jacqueline Franklin, and he has 3 granddaughters. The archives received several brochures and papers this past year, including multiple copies of the 2020 Alabama Voters Guide. We were also given an oversized map of the Centennial Hill neighborhood, along with flyers regarding public meetings pertaining to the future of the historic neighborhood. We also want to thank everyone who participated in an oral history interview this year, helping us to grow our oral history collection. To learn more about these and other collections, please visit the Archives webpage. There, you can make a research appointment, learn about new projects, or browse our digital library full of photos and information. Thank you.
We hope you've enjoyed the 19th Annual Patrons and Donors Program. Let us hear from Dr. Janice Franklin, Dean of the Levi Watkins Learning Center and Project Director of the National Center for the Study of Civil Rights and African American Culture, who will share a few words of acknowledgments for those who have contributed to this year's program.
On behalf of the faculty and staff of the Levi Watkins Learning Center, I would like to take this opportunity to thank all of you for your attendance at our annual Patrons and Donors Program. As Dean of the Library and Project Director of the National Center for the Study of Civil Rights and African American Culture, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to our patrons for their ongoing support and to our donors who have entrusted us with these special collections and artifacts for preservation in our archives. Our mission to serve as a research center, repository, and living museum is further achieved through the contributions of our patrons and donors. Having devoted patrons who are advocates for this mission has enabled us to reach and teach people from around the world about the history and culture of African Americans, with a special focus on Alabama State University, the university with a rich history in higher education and in the struggle for civil rights. We appreciate our patrons who have supported us for over 15 years in our mission, from our first honorable president, Mrs. Johnny Royster, to our current president, Mr. Bill Ford. We look forward to the continued partnership and growth of our patrons who have exciting plans for the coming year. To our donors, we say a special thank you for giving us these gifts that will document our history and preserve a legacy for generations to come. In closing, I would also like to thank our administration, President Ross, our provost, Dr. Carl Pettis, and our Chief of Staff, Dr. Kevin Roll, for their ongoing support of our centers and public programming. And now I would like to express my gratitude to all of our outstanding archive staff and members of the National Center for their tireless work to produce this program. Thanks to Mrs. Reagan Stearns, our university archivist and program chair, for a job well done. And thanks to Dr. Howard Robinson, Associate Director for Archives and Cultural Heritage. We hope that all of you in our audience have enjoyed our program today in tribute to our patrons and donors. Thank you again for your attendance.